Hi, I'm Scoot. I really had an extraordinary night last night. I was writing the whole concept of new wave in 2019. I had a conversation with Terri Nunn of Berlin, a new wave group from the '80s, and also Cindy Wilson, one of the lead singers of the B-52's, another group that really had a unique place in new wave music history. And it was really interesting to see this. Last night, the concert tour was in New Orleans at the Sanger Theater, and I had a chance to spend time with both of them before their shows. And these are really two extraordinary bands and two extraordinary individuals. Terri Nunn from Berlin was amazing. She's cute. She's great. She's 57 years old, and she represents something that I feel in my life, and that is that as you get older, oh my God, you've got so much to look forward to. If you do the best you can to take care of yourself, obviously. But from her relationship with her band now, it's back together, and there were problems in the beginning, a lot of tension in Berlin in the early years. Better relationship with the band, and her sexuality is anyway. She's just in a really great place, and I found the same thing to be true with Cindy Wilson of the B-52's, and I can tell you this from my standpoint, man. If you're millennial, Gen X, Gen Y, man, don't worry about getting older. You have got a lot to look forward to because, Mick Jagger, 76. I mean, we go through this all the time. These baby boomer rockers are still doing it. Look, anyway, last night was a really great night, and I love seeing the audience. It was a sold out crowd for Berlin, OMD, another band from the '80s, and the B-52's last night in New Orleans, sold out. And the crowd was on its feet for most of the entire time the B-52's were on stage. Let me go back to Terri Nunn for just a minute. By the way, there's my full interview with her. We may get it up on my website, which is scootontheair.com. We may get it up there, but it's also on my Facebook page, Scoot on the Air. And I talked to her out in the audience before the doors were open, and we had a really candid conversation about new wave music, about sex, about touring on the tour bus, about one really interesting revelation about Berlin on tour in 2019. It might surprise you because these are still rockers, but this might surprise you. Anyway, all of that's in the interview, and we'll try to get that up on my website, scootontheair.com. But it's on my Facebook page, Scoot on the Air. So check that out and share it. Also, if it's not on now, it will be on soon. We'll also have the posted interview with Cindy Wilson of B-52's. And that was in her dressing room backstage. She does her own makeup, and she does a lot of makeup. But, it was so much fun, not only to see these people still performing. In fact, both of them are celebrating 40 years in the business. They both have new stuff out. Some of the new stuff I heard from Berlin is amazing. Check it out. Transcendence is the new Berlin album. Check it out. And the B-52's have some recent stuff out. And it was just so much fun to watch them and then also to watch the audience. And you saw people in the audience that never looked like they would know any of the lyrics for Berlin or the B-52's. They just didn't seem to fit that stereotype. But when they were younger, these are the bands that they loved. And to think about the role that new wave music played, new wave music was like late 70s, 80, early 80s. And new wave music really was post-punk. And it was really kind of, I guess you would say, a commercialization of punk rock. There was an attempt in the late 80s to push the hardcore punk that was popular in Great Britain, in the United States, and it didn't work. Hardcore punk was aggressive. It was mean. I mean, I guess that's one way to put it. Again, it was mainly aggressive, very anti-government. Well, the economic times for young people in the UK were different than the economic times for young people in America. So again, this just shows you that music doesn't dictate behavior. Music reflects behavior. And so that hard punk that was so successful in the UK in the late 70s and very early 80s, mainly late 70s, I guess, it didn't work in America because things were pretty good here. And then, when we got into 1980 and then the 80s and the Reagan administration and things were good. And if you listen to music from the 80s, there's really a very happy tone to it for the most part, uplifting. Ironically, I hear a lot of 80s influence in music today, which is positive because it means that there's a young generation that is feeling positive about their lives in the future. And what I see with the young generation and their music today is like, hey, you know what? The world is screwed up, but we didn't do it. They did it. Let's just do the best we can until we're in a position to really make a difference. And so I do hear that positive attitude. But, it was so much fun to just relive that synth sound of new wave music. And remember the very early years of MTV, which went on the air in 1981. And it was just, it was reliving. It was like rewriting the new wave of the late 70s and early 80s with Berlin and B-52's. And OMD was very good in concert as well. So I just wanted to spend a few minutes with you to talk a little bit about Berlin and the B-52's. And the B-52's have been declared the world's greatest party band, but they're more than that. They really do hold a very special place in new wave music history. They were described as a band that gave punks permission to dance. And that's so true. And look, man, there were some costumes, there were some wigs in the audience in New Orleans last night. And all of that is because of the decadence of the B-52's. They were almost a satire. They had a lot of sense of humor, but it was a cerebral sense of humor in their music. And they also do something called call and response with their lyrics. For example, Fred Schneider would call out. He would sing something, say something. Sometimes he would just say it, and the girls would sing. It was a call and response style. And there was much, whether you liked him or not, there was much that was very, very unique about the B-52's. And it was just, again, it was just great reliving that. And if you were from the grunge era or the new wave era, the 80s or the 60s, there's something really comforting about where you are in life now, revisiting those bands and those things that you so remember when you were young. And and it's okay to see the B-52's, it's okay to see Terri Nunn mature because we matured. It's okay. And so we get a chance to see a reflection of ourselves in those bands. And I just thought that was just two really extraordinary conversations with Terri Nunn, very, very honest about her life and the band Berlin. By the way, Berlin was formed in Southern California, and they wanted a name that would bring mystique to the band. So they just picked the name Berlin. And it worked because, I thought they were a European band. And of course, their big hit, You Take My Breath Away, from the soundtrack of Top Gun. Terri Nunn started that out last night a cappella and even went into the audience. And it was a really special moment. But that song brought a lot of attention to the band because it was written by somebody from the outside. And Johnny Crawford, one of the main songwriters with Berlin, didn't like doing it in concert because he didn't write it. But then he finally came to accept that it was like a #1 hit in the United States, UK, I think Germany and Australia as well. So it was truly their biggest #1 hit. So they had to play it. But that tension is gone. And with age, you lose a lot of stress, and in some ways, you just really get to enjoy life. So, look forward to those moments when you can just relive those moments that you remember having such a great time when you were young. And the cool thing is, you don't have to give up those moments. and you can still have fun. And remember, you never, ever have to act your age.